All right, San Francisco 49ers are up next. Trevor's giving them a C+ here. You got Eric Armstead out, Javon Kinlaw out on the defensive line. Armstead really the big one there. And just kind of filled things in with Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, both of those guys at edge, and then Jordan Elliott at defensive tackle. For me, the biggest win right now, though, is Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are still on the roster.
Yeah.
It is one of those things that, like, no matter which way they go, I'm probably feeling good about it. You know what I mean? If they steal a first-round pick for one of those guys, knowing that you can't invest that heavily in that many players, I'm okay with that too. But right now, going into 24 and looking at what they have on the field, I mean, the 49ers roster is still looking really good.
Yeah, I'd love to know how serious any of those trade talks got, or whether they were just rumors or rumblings, whether they were real or not. Because, yeah, keeping those guys intact and adding Ricky Pearsall in the first round, I mean, that it maintains and enhances what is already maybe the most ridiculous skill position collection in the NFL when you take it in its totality with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and even Kyle Juszczyk as a fullback. It's such an insane group, and keeping it all together is huge for a team that wants to win a Super Bowl. But it would have been interesting to know, like, did they have offers on the table? Did they turn down a first-round pick to keep them both in place? Because that maybe changes your opinion on the whole thing. But overall, I think you got to look at it and say the offense is still in incredible shape. Offensive line is still a little bit of a question on paper, but it looks worse than I think the reality of it or the impact of it is. Like last season, it was a weakness on paper all the way through the season. But the number of games the weakness on paper became a problem on the field is fairly minimal. So maybe they're taking that approach, and maybe this is a Shanahan tree approach generally. Like Miami appears to not give that much of a crap how bad the offensive line looks on paper, because with all those fast guys and with Tua getting the ball out quickly, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Maybe Shanahan himself, Kyle, is aware that, yeah, I would like a better offensive line. I do, however, know that I make the group look better with the system and that I kind of minimize the problems.
There's also the element of they all played last year, and it's this position where O-line, as a O-line keynote speaker and expert here, cool clinic weekend here.
Yeah.
I'm going to highlight how offensive linemen do take 2, 3, 4 years to develop. And Jake Brendel at center has developed into at least an average center, and Colton McKivitz at right tackle, at least an average-ish type of right tackle. That probably is good enough there. I think my bigger question, so two things here. You mentioned the Steelers may be playing more man coverage. It looks like the Niners might be as well. Second-round pick Renardo Green out of Florida State, Rocky Sin. Like those guys are more man coverage type of corners. So that cornerback spot opposite Javarius Ward, who's a very good man corner. You've got those options there. And then, by the way, Dominic Pooney, when we're talking offensive line, he has a chance to play guard and give them some depth there. And then my question is on the defensive line. So not that Javon Kinlaw was great, but he had some flashes last year. But losing Armstead might hurt.
Sure.
With Leonard Floyd not, playing as well as he has in recent years. I don't know that they're rolling 7 and 8 deep the same way they have on the defensive line. So that's just something else to keep an eye on here for the Niners. Are they relying too much on Nick Bosa? Last year they looked so loaded because they brought in Chase Young and brought in Randy Gregory, and all those guys are gone. So what looked like this loaded defensive line that they had on their run to the Super Bowl, much depleted compared to where it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their recent drafts, and they've kind of been absent, these guys coming in and making a big difference for a couple of drafts now. Obviously, Brock Purdy is papering over all of that, right? Because they've got literally the best value contract in football in a high-level quarterback playing on the Mr. Irrelevant deal. But, guys like Drake Jackson, who I really liked coming out as a situational pass rusher, has not become that guy. And even if he was only a situational pass rusher for them, but like a good one, it would be huge. And yet they haven't hit on him, so they have to go to the Leonard Floyd and try and bring in somebody like that to add something next to or opposite Nick Bosa. But you're right, like that. I mean, Javon Hargrave is great. Nick Bosa is great. Everybody else in that group,
they feel like they'll still be players though, right? In the veteran defensive line market here. But right now, it definitely looks like it's less on paper than they've had over the last few years.
Right.